If you're watching this video within a few weeks of its posting, then you still have time to back the Cyberzoic Kickstarter. Otherwise, check out the Creative Beast website to see which figures are still available and what the next project might be. Today's cocktail that I'm calling the Forest Fog requires bourbon, dark spiced rum, lime juice, simple syrup, grapefruit bitters, a cocktail smoker, and parsley. In your glass, add 1.5 ounces of bourbon, a 1/2 ounce of a dark spiced rum, 3/4 ounce of lime juice, a 1/2 ounce of simple syrup, and a dash of grapefruit bitters. Add in some ice, give it a swirl, and smoke it to your liking. Add your parsley or whatever you'd like to use as trees, and enjoy. Cheers! Back in 2016, David Silva of Creative Beast Studio launched a successful Kickstarter for a line of scientifically up-to-date 1/6 scale articulated raptor toys. The toy line, with the umbrella name Beasts of the Mesozoic, continued with Kickstarters for the Ceratopsian series in 2019 and the Tyrannosaur series in 2021. The Ceratopsian series is where things shifted down to 1/18 scale because a 1/6 scale Triceratops would be quite large and subsequently quite expensive. The Tyrannosaur line continued the 1/18 scale, and Creative Beast released some undersized versions of the earlier raptors in that scale as well to fit with the rest of the series. Even at 1/18 scale, these Tyrannosaurs are huge, so some, like this one, were also released in 1/35 scale. I assume this was to bring it down to the same size as the other figures, for those who aren't focused on scale, much like the Bandai Movie Monster series for Godzilla collectors. 6-inch does seem to be one of the collectible standards across multiple toy lines. These dinosaur figures have color schemes based on modern birds and reptiles, except for the Kickstarter fan vote exclusives. Those ones are based on previous dinosaur toys or other media, like the Roadrunner, Dino Riders, and this Walking with Dinosaurs-inspired Tyrannosaurus Rex. The packaging for each series has a consistent design, but the exclusives are kicked up a notch with special packaging, like this one that mimics the look of the toy packages from the BBC series. Inside, you get the base figure, bonus legs, a few extra feet, a base, a collectible info card, and some important notes. Please make sure you read those. Now, I want to start off by saying that I like this figure. I do. I've just been ruined by Mattel and Bandai. The Jurassic T-Rex design is so cemented in my mind that anything else, even something based on current science, looks off to me. And Mattel has been churning out the Rexes, so there's always some available for under 50 bucks. And while the Monster Arts figures are a little more expensive and have some major gaps between the joints, that allows for a great range of articulation that something with fewer to no gaps just can't achieve. That said, this T-Rex, out of the box, has shockingly good balance. Especially if you're used to the large feet of the Mattel carnivores, this seems like magic. But nope, it's absolutely possible, and having tails of proportionate size and length really helps, doesn't it, Mattel? I mean, yeah, these are obviously made for different markets. This figure sold for 65 bucks on the Kickstarter, plus whatever shipping worked out to be, I want to say 12 bucks? But since we're long past that, now you gotta be lucky enough to find one on eBay. Anyway, the tail has multiple segments with a bendy wire in the final part. The body is made of 2 parts. The lower jaw opens and closes, and the head is attached to the body somehow behind this neck piece that I thought was going to be rubber for extra flexibility, but turns out is a hard plastic, so that was the opposite of what I expected. The legs have a pretty large forward and back range of motion in the hips, tight joints in the knees, and that's it for the base legs. Now, these base legs are literally base legs as they're designed to plug into the base. However, they're the only feet with plug holes. Since there's no other articulation in these lower legs, they're the most stable, which means 2 things. 1, they don't really need to be plugged into the base. And 2, they help keep the figure secure on the base when putting it in other dynamic poses, especially ones where only one leg is touching the ground. I mean, theoretically. The notes even imply that single leg poses aren't going to last long. To swap these legs, twist and pull at the knee. The second set of lower legs have calf articulation and a double ball joint at the ankle, which I discovered when I went to swap the feet and popped the entire ball joint out with it. For the bonus feet, you have this one with all the toes closer together, and this other one with bent toes. Due to the higher number of joints and their various tightnesses, I could hardly get this Rex to stand on its own with the other feet without the base. For some joints, specifically the ankles, it's a little too loose to hold up the weight of the body. For other joints, like some of the knees, I hurt my thumb trying to get it to budge, even after using a hairdryer. I do prefer tighter joints to looser joints, but damn, be careful what you wish for. I've seen some photos of this exact figure in some pretty dynamic poses, and now I wonder if they were photoshopped. I'm not going to fault the toy line for someone else giving me unrealistic expectations, but looking back at this footage, I think these poses are just fine. I'm hesitant to really push joints to their limits because some of these figures are too rare, expensive, or both for me to potentially snap it in half. If it requires hair drying, boiling, carving, or lubing, I'm more likely to just sell off the figure than put in the work, or just leave it on the shelf in a neutral pose, which I'm also fine with. But can we talk about the paint for a minute? This is stellar. The Beasts of the Mesozoic figures have some of the finest paint jobs I've ever seen on an action figure. The cohesion of the colors, the way it blends perfectly with the sculpted details, the washes and the dry brushes, and the way it all looks like part of the skin instead of paint on top of a sculpt. And I much prefer this to a solid statue. While I initially felt like it fell short for me as an action figure, there's definitely enough movement for it to be worth it above and beyond a solid figure like something from the Carnegie collection. The sculpt is great. The detailing is superb. The work that David Silva puts into these, the research into the most up-to-date information on skeletal structure and musculature is astounding. The Beasts of the Mesozoic line continues to impress, and I'm glad it's still ongoing. As of the recording of this video, there's a Kickstarter for the next iteration called Cyberzoic, which is a fun way to continue the previous lines with creatures like Allosaurus, bring in other prehistoric creatures like the Smilodon that people have been wanting, and go a little wild with dinosaur armor and dragons. No matter what weird issues I may have with articulation, we can all agree that these figures still make superb display pieces, and I'm happy to continue supporting the line. Here's hoping for more prehistoric creatures from Creative Beast, even beyond Cyberzoic. Perhaps some marine reptiles? Until then, thanks for watching, and please, drink responsibly.